Welcome to part 2. Here we begin covering the 3 character episodes that were included in the season pass of the base game, but are now free with the Royal Edition. When the game first came out, there were certain points in the story where character development could happen, but it would either lead to nowhere or come right the hell out of nowhere. And I'm of course referring to the kind of development that would be more personal, like Prompto, and his reveal that he was from Niflheim, even though nothing beforehand brought up the idea that this would happen. This is essentially content that was likely taken out of the main game to be sold separately, much like Brotherhood and the Kingsglaive movie. This would be where you first got to see the new form of gameplay that each character would have when you control them. For reference, episode Gladios came out in March of 2017, while Prompto's came out in June, and Ignis on December 13th, 2 days after the ability to character swap was implemented in the main game. I don't know how much of the gameplay for all of them was around during Versus 13, for as you'll see, Prompto was at least shown to be playable in similar fashion to the final product. As for this though, this was still in the time where the game had been getting mixed reception from fans due to the seemingly incomplete story and how it was being cut up in pieces. And since there are still some pieces of the story I need to see on top of what we've seen so far, how much will all these episodes provide in tying together the Royal Edition stuff? Let's find out. First up, Gladio. Apparently, the story is told at some random campout, which could mean any time after the power plant incident and before the boat ride. Gladio would tell his friends what he was doing since he left the group, not to mention, explain that sword that he was never seen with during the main game and is actually a reward for completing the DLC. Already we have a problem. If that blade was something he picked up during his absence, why did he not wear it during the power plant incident? It would actually prove that what he did meant something if he brought back a powerful weapon that could help in fighting the Empire. Otherwise, if it isn't important at all, why bother starting us off with him and that blade, or never make mention of it during the main game? They just make it look like they didn't quite plan this out entirely, and just decided to wing it. Anyway, Gladio had asked Cor about something he wanted to do for some time now, and it involves going to the Tempering Grounds, where those serving the king can undertake the Blade Master trial. Apparently, Gladio is still sore for losing to Ravus, and wishes to prove himself worthy as a shield, which is why he's asking Cor for help since he went there once and survived. Now, as we'll see, this is good development for Cor, and it does advance Gladios in trying to be a better friend and shield to Noctis. In Brotherhood, he was shown to not like Noctis as a kid for not being cooperative, and desired to be a guard for Regis instead. However, after Noctis covered for Iris for getting them lost in the woods, Gladio realized that Noctis was willing to take the punishment for those he considers friends, which is what got him to admire him more. With all that said, does this actually have a follow-up with Ravus in the end? I mean, sure, Gladio would be shown to be buddy-buddy with Noctis, but this bit of doubt on his own abilities due to what Ravus did was what prompted him to go out there to begin with. So would getting stronger be a good way to prove him wrong, and that they're both worthy of their positions? Nope! Because Ravus dies before Gladio can interact with him. So there is absolutely no payoff to wanting to prove him wrong. Just the usual friendship thing with Noctis during the raid on the Citadel. Now, as the map shows, you're going through a cavern that you can get to in the main game, but you can't go inside because it's meant for Gladio. As mentioned, Gladio fights more on a defensive level where you can build up rage, either by taking damage or guarding at the right time, and you can perform glaive arts as a result of how much you build up. Between the others, his is probably the most difficult to figure out because of the timing you need to have in order to truly build up your damage output, plus countering can be a bit difficult. Now, Cor does reveal that he failed the trial, thus he was unable to become a full shield, yet was allowed to live because he may have another purpose besides needing to be a shield. Again, it's more character development that these characters needed, and why they would remain at their respective partners' sides. It's just that, again, this started because of one other reason, and that reason is never revisited. If Gladio had a chance to fight Ravus before Altissia, and proved his worth in holding him back with the others, it might have helped in making Ravus rethink his views on the group as a whole, since we never have found out why he thought to return Regis' sword to you. Anyway, I will admit, some of the unique gameplay elements exclusive to each episode are pretty good. Like smacking enemies with columns is always enjoyable. Plus you do get a sense of accomplishment for getting some new moves during all this. Even on normal, things can get pretty intense, which is the most I can say since, again, he's the most difficult to really figure out, and probably best suited for crowded enemy groups. But that music is pretty metal though. Sooner or later, Korra leaves you for the last time because this is the point where someone may want to stop you if they feel you aren't capable of what lies ahead. He doesn't though, but he warns you that one false step and it's all over. Soon you come face to face with Gilgamesh.
I'm here. Brandishing your brute force. Yeah, let's see if you can handle it.
And whatever you do, don't die. If you die, don't pick to start from the last checkpoint, because that will send you back to the very beginning of the dungeon. You'll have to pick the last save point, which were the campfires you've been using. You still have a few cutscenes to see, but it's not as bad as starting from the beginning. Either way, after a long fight and nearly losing out, you win, and Gladio says that he is afraid, but will still protect Noctis the only way he knows how, which is what Gilgamesh was hoping for.
Fear and doubt beget death alone. He who averts his gaze from his own faults cannot himself a true shield call. But you, having made peace with your inner self, have proven you are worthy. The chosen king should be so fortunate as to have a man like yourself serving at his side.
Also, he gives you the blade that belonged to Kor when he first came here and lost. Once again, it becomes part of Gladio, and apparently I didn't see it during the fight, but he does dual wield it during the battle against the Fierce during the Citadel raid. More reason why they should have made this a main game item, and not some DLC item you get as a reward for the main game. Otherwise, no one would know what this is if they had it for the main story. In the end, the episode can take roughly an hour to beat. It's a little rough to play at times, but it's overall a decent story edition. Just wish they did a better job with bringing it into the main game beforehand if they wanted to entice you with wanting to know what happened and why you have this sick blade.
But if you do, I'll be ready.
Next up, Prompto. Naturally, this one takes place after the incident on the train when Noctis pushes you off, thinking you were Ardyn. Turns out, Ardyn had cast an illusion on you to make him think you were Ardyn, both on top of the train and inside the train, which would explain why he was acting like a dude earlier. Though if that's the case, why didn't Noctis say anything about pursuing Ardyn? And why didn't Prompto say anything about being attacked by Noctis? I'm just saying, this seemingly betrayed story could have been lessened if Prompto knew ahead of time that Noct was tricked. So now he's out in the mountainside, alone, and in some new clothing we've never seen. He's soon captured by the Magitech troopers and gets taken to some facility in the mountains. And all the while, we get some backstory through the loading screen that partially reflects what we know from both Brotherhood and that little bit of trivia I mentioned in the initial review. Because yes, we're finally getting an explanation to why Versailles was his father. But here's where I get confused.
My whole life, all I ever wanted was friends. But no one ever wanted me back. So when I finally found people who did want me, I did everything I could to make them stay. And ever since then, I've lived my life in fear. That one day they'd find out who I really was, and they wouldn't want me anymore.
Funny, the way Brotherhood made it look, you were just too shy to want to make friends. Where did this idea that them learning about your homeland would be bad for you and getting friends? Hell, one of the talks you have with Prompto enforces what was in Brotherhood, that he was shy and didn't really know how to fit in until he helped Luna's dog and gained a new purpose in life, to be Noctis's friend. Anyway, the bulk of backstory comes from documents and finding audio tapes. Also, Ardyn tells you about how Magitech troopers are born, and that you were one as well. Despite still being an infant at the time, they would have done something to you, which was to try and give infants the substance that turns you into demons instead of when you're older. Like in the main game, you can switch between one of 4 weapons, though you get 2 to start. One of them is your pistol, which always lands a hit, while you also have a melee weapon since you're alone and would need some close range protection. You also have bullet arts that use your energy bar. One is the Star Shell that illuminates dark places, and the other, the selfie shot. Even now, you still have time to be a goof with a camera. Apparently, soda machines count as campsites. Ha! What's cool is that you can stealth kill enemies, which gives you their weapons. It's also how you can resupply your ammo on said weapons, since they don't refill like they do in the main game after a short period of time. You can also get them from weapon racks as well, and you do get other weapons like the sniper rifle and the bazooka to play with. Would you believe there's still a day and night cycle here? Anyway, turns out Versdale isn't quite Prompto's father, but he was a clone baby of him.
Eliminate the pesky process of breeding them. Mass production remains a pipe dream for now, but I'm confident I can create a massive infantry once the process picks up. If everything goes according to plan, the Empire will boast a 1,000,000-man army in no time at all.
All this time, those things I've been fighting have been...
You know, the whole time learning from documents and logs, this could have been stuff Versdale told him in person, because otherwise, this is pretty much what I expect to hear.
I am your father.
No. It's not true. That's impossible!
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
But the worst part is, after all this time in establishing Versdale as just a mad scientist wanting to make troopers, they pull this on us.
Finally, my demon-infused Magitech armor is complete. I have christened my creation Diamond Weapon. It has exhibited an extremely unstable psyche, immediately unleashing unmitigated horrors upon activation. Its destructive capabilities, however, are indeed beyond compare. Not even the impenetrable Insomnia could withstand its onslaught. Why, the Crown City would fall in a mere matter of minutes. The Stone of Legend will soon be mine. To think that in less than a month's time, the crystal will be mine to play with as I please.
So he's the one behind the attack on Insomnia. He planned the whole thing. Everything we lost that day is gone because of him.
Yes, Versdale was the one responsible for the attack on Insomnia, and not the Emperor, who went out of his way to sign that treaty with Regis, and then with Ardyn steal the crystal. Oh no, it was Versdale's plan all along that Insomnia would fall. You know, it's amazing whenever someone tries to pull the puppeteer of the puppeteer of the puppeteer, like in Naruto. But to have the puppeteer puppet of the puppeteer be revealed after knowing the mastermind, That's just insulting. This is the first time in the entire game we've got to learn anything about this guy, who up until this point had nothing to do with anything that happened in the main game, and all of a sudden we get this massive bombshell of info that tries to reinforce how important this one scientist was, but overplay his role by making him as equal a villain as Ardyn. Just, wow. To cram all that in here, instead of having it in the main game, and not just have the aftermath of Prompto's little discovery that for a long time would go unexplained. You know what? This is dumb. This way of revealing a minor antagonist as someone major, despite promoting him beforehand to be main game material, is just low. So, just for you, here's the whole conversation between Prompto and his long-awaited father.
What's the matter? Have you never seen a man turn before? If those Lucians hadn't intervened, you could have turned too, because you were cloned from this genius's genes, born of my own flesh and blood. You are but one of millions, created to serve our great empire in the Magitech infantry.
To serve you?
Yes. And now you've finally come home to Niflheim, my son.
Shut up! You're wrong. I'm a Lucian! I am not one of your experiments!
Not anymore. Now, you're nothing but a failure. I ought to return you whence you came. Perhaps then you might serve some useful purpose.
Never!
With your help, my ascension to divinity is now all but complete. Soon, neither the kings of Lucis nor the gods themselves will be able to challenge my reign.
Yep, that was all there was to this reunion. Just there to prove to Prompto that he is in fact a clone of him. Of course, that's not quite the end of him, because somehow his mind gets uploaded into this machine that will come back later. He gets only a few more lines of dialogue later, but otherwise, this is the extent of their interactions. Luckily, Aranea shows up, for some reason, to help you out of here.
I don't know what's got you so shook, but you can deal with it later. Let's move. I'm only gonna say this once. Lose your will to live and you lose all hope of me helping your sorry ass. Got it?
Still a badass though. She joins you just as how Cor joins Gladio, though at first you escape alone by snowmobile. You can fire your gun or run over enemies, but it doesn't matter since there's not much danger here. Even on what may appear to be a smaller map that takes place somewhere in the mountains, the game still has loading issues. The majority of this episode is Prompto trying to figure out who he is because of his origins, which is again something that should have been more prominent in the main game. It was loosely hinted at during that stay at the hotel, but never to this degree. Really, the only good thing about all this is that Aranea gets to show more of her character, since remember, she used to work for the Empire. She's the only character besides Cor that I would actually like to have with my party at all times, since she's capable of actually speaking to the party as an adult with plenty of personal experiences that can still relate to them. I want to learn more about her, and this only gives me a small taste of what could be her as a whole. Also, for some reason, this episode felt the need to include side quests that you can complete to upgrade your snowmobile using the parts you get. Some of the quests happen during certain times of the day too, which seems a bit much considering that if Noctis and friends left for the capital recently, and you happen to be taking several days to do this, wouldn't that mean the train is going super damn slow? That it wouldn't make it to Gralea before you? At the speed the train would normally go, it should take no less than a day, so why would they feel the need to have quests happen at different times of the day, thus making it look like this episode happened over the course of a few days?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Really, this whole episode is just a great big mind screw, with some signs of horror thrown in, given the fact that you're a clone. Was this really necessary to keep to this one DLC event? Could nothing have been brought over into the main game? Especially if not everyone is able to find all the in-game events with Noctis and friends, since they're either too busy with the plot or other things not relating to him? Hell, you might not have even cared enough to check this episode out until you got to that big WTF moment in Chapter 13. So really, this was another poorly planned story event. Also, doing the side quests is pretty much pointless anyway. Nothing in the final boss fight would involve the snowmobile upgrades, and the one side quest I saw was pretty much out of my way, when the main story quest I had to do was just not far away from here. It's pointless. The side quests are utterly pointless. I should also mention that a lot of the time, you just fight waves of enemies that get annoying if they happen to have bazooka launchers. It makes it harder to really play with Prompto, who is better with multiple people. But at least you can still switch between different people in that, so you didn't have to worry about getting overwhelmed. So anyway, after finding out that Versdale's new model machine is capable of destroying the world, we come across another monster that's guarding him. After killing that, which is honestly not too hard to do, we get the final boss of this episode. So since this fight was done using natural controls, naturally the final boss fight is a rail shooter section. Because of course it is. It's the easiest rail shooter in existence too. Just shoot for the weak point and that's it. Versdale is good as dead, and Prompto has become a man. I guess. He plans to tell Noctis and friends who he truly is, while Ardyn trolls us again. This one has quite a bit more content to it, even if it's completely optional, and it certainly tries more with developing the character. Even if it was to serve something that was missing from the beginning. The credits only show part of what happened after being taken to Gralea, which is rather somber considering what we went through, and the post-credits scene is okay. They at least acknowledged the train at long last. Either way, this one just felt a little more rough than before due to a mix of enemies being numerous, pointless side quests, and that they made this the one time that Prompto gets the most character development. Easily the weakest one so far. And at long last, it's time for Ignis. Will his story be better than the others at least? Well, if Rayvis in the artwork means anything, I got a bad feeling about this. I kept saying that it made no sense for him to just turn to the good side without interacting with Noctis, so what would he get out of interacting with Ignis? Let's find out. This time we're playing during the events of Alticia, where Luna summoned Leviathan, and Noctis got his power from her. Being just after that fight too, Ignis now has to rush to his rescue. But first, we get some more backstory on Ignis and how he became the closest servant to Noctis. This is also in reference to Brotherhood, where the two would grow up in the same apartment as each other, so this is a continuation of that development. Also, there are apparently chapters in this episode. Yep. They're really going all out with this one. This episode took the longest to come out, meaning it had to have been in development the longest given all the cinematic cutscenes. So in the way of gameplay, like in the main game, you can focus on using your spell blades, and once it's at full power, you can press the triangle button again to fire them off, while being able to switch between different elements for different effects. This also applies to when you melee, as fire is best used against single enemies, Frost does good with AoE, and lightning allows you to zip around the battlefield with ease. You can also dodge and parry, which serves as a good counter. Still, outside of Prompto, Ignis is at least fun to play with during his episode. Honest to God, I absolutely love the combat here, and I do like how they try to add an incentive to recapture the city by having each sector occupied, and you have to figure out the best way of reclaiming the districts. Is it difficult? Sure, but it's a little more manageable than Gladio at least. Oh hey, Caligo does live even after killing him in the flying model timeline. Rayvis reminds us about what happened in the movie before Caligo goes into his flying ship. There's a cool boat sequence where you try to get to the altar before facing off against Caligo. After you beat him, Rayvis shows up to kill him before you get to talk with him and join him in a fight.
Join me. I can secure us a way to the King of the Oracle.
How do I know I can trust you?
Have you any other options?
You have a point.
Then it's settled.
Yep, we still don't know why he is willing to help us, other than maybe to get to his sister. But yeah, this is where Rayvis joins us as a companion, and his special move is pretty cool. At least that arm can do something after all, besides let him die if it gets cut off. It's funny though that this is the first time we start really learning more about his motivations, and not when he interacts with Noctis. Just because Ignis is a brother and a servant, he still has the least to do with Rayvis out of anyone here. He shouldn't be the one learning about why he hates the royal family. It should be Noctis. So eventually you reach the altar where you find Luna's dog, who is badly injured, and Ignis sees into the future in which Noctis dies? Yeah, it explains the side effects of using the ring, which is more of a blood price, but why is he getting this? Anyway, you find Luna using the last of her life energy to heal Noctis before she passes. This makes Rayvis upset even more, and angry over the fact that the Lucian family took more of his family. More on that later. For now, the two fight for a bit.
I understand the pain you must be feeling, but Noct isn't the one who did this to her.
He is. Take this!
Lady Lunafreya came to her king's aid in his time of need. She was fulfilling her calling.
Don't try to justify this! She didn't need to die!
Kill him, and her sacrifice will have been for naught. Kill him, and you kill her hopes for the future!
What hope is there in a future that my sister will never see?
Again, it's Ignis who is the one to turn Rayvis onto our side. Not Noctis, who could have said that he didn't choose to be king, but will still do what he can for everyone's sake. It's Ignis, whose only relation to Rayvis was that he didn't choose his fate either, but was willing to carry it out. They had a chance to maybe have Noctis say something, even if he's not fully conscious, but no! Let's not do that at all. Of all things, this one feels the most infuriating in terms of how they decided to resolve a piece of the story. So come the final chapter, we get one of the more unique aspects of this character episode. Multiple endings! Yes, depending on what happens next, you can actually change the outcome of the overall ending. Because Rayvis somehow saw through Ardyn's Gladio disguise, yet he couldn't see through the Noctis one, Ignis has a choice to make. He can either use the ring for his own and fight Ardyn, or hide it and play along. Of course, the first time playing, you can only choose to fight back, and honestly, what happens is what I would have hoped for from him anyway.
I swore an oath to stand with Noct and keep him safe. Whatever it takes, I will protect him.
I wouldn't do that if I were
I may not be of royal blood, but if a glaive can harness its power, then so can I!
When did you hear about the time Nyx used the ring? Unless there's an event I missed, there was nothing to indicate that news of what Nyx did got out to the world. Whatever. He's gonna lose his vision as a result, which is his blood price for using the ring. Though first, we get to see him fight using the ring's power. Of course, the ring eventually wears off, and I guess that's it. Ardyn isn't seen anymore, and Rayvis tells you about what happened and wishes you luck. The real Gladio and Prompto show up, and the chapter ends with Ignis apologizing for what he had to do. The credits show some of the stuff that happened after, and that's just to be expected after everything that happened. Though how he stylized his hair being blind? Whatever. But also we see that Noctis was willing to go through with the journey despite how much he's lost so far. Ignis can only do what he has to in order to help. But now what about that alternate ending? Well, if you choose to join Ardyn, he takes you to the capital where you find the crystal, as Ignis believes he can defy fate and save Noctis from the future he saw. He also learns more about what Ardyn is and what happened with him. It's a little weird that he would still be shown the good future from the other timeline, since at this point we've already defied fate by being here. So Ardyn shows his true self, tells him about his revenge and his identity, blah blah blah, fight time. We end up losing, and Ardyn slaughters us with his Armiger.
You see, the revenge I seek is not upon the boy. I only wish to punish the crystal that cast me aside in favor of that insufferable fool. He's certainly taking his sweet time ascending as its champion, though. Would there were a way to expedite the process!
You could have killed him long ago, killed everyone else with ease. You chose to drag things out by waiting, so it's your own damn fault this is happening. Ignis declares he won't let Noctis sacrifice himself and puts the ring on. With this fight, you can go on for a while, though at certain intervals the ring will wear off, and you have to choose whether you want to sacrifice your life, risk your life, or give up. If you choose to give up your life, you get the bad ending. You can keep trying to risk your life to defeat Ardyn, but it seems no matter what, you keep losing the ring's enchantment and have to fight at full power by sacrificing your life, which unfortunately I don't have the footage to show. But still, once you beat Ardyn, he vows he'll return before disappearing. Noctis and the others show up, since Rayvis was able to bring them here that quickly. Noctis feels at fault for letting this happen and swears to not lose anyone again. So he uses the ring and the crystal to save you. Yep, because Ignis defeated Ardyn, Noctis is able to commune with the crystal, and during his absence, you get to see some of the things that happen as darkness envelops the world. Ardyn is still around, but as soon as Noctis returns... Yeah, everyone lives in this ending, and Ignis isn't blind apparently, meaning this is the true good ending that we deserved, right? Oh, of course not. This is the alternate ending that's meant for those who didn't like how it originally ended. So yeah, this one is probably the best of the 3 episodes, but mainly due to gameplay and some of the character development they gave to Ignis. While it's mostly just, he's a highly devoted servant, friend, brother, whatever, the lengths he would go to protect the one most dear to him is at least admirable. It was cool to see him risk his own life by using the ring's power, and even if by your own hand, go as far to risk your own life before pledging to sacrifice yourself completely. The only issue I have is with the handling of Rayvis. I still don't think Ignis should have been the one to turn him. Or at least not alone. Noctis should have had a hand in making Rayvis turn good, since he was one of his focal points in his anger to begin with. Noctis should have been the one to resolve things with Rayvis and prove his worth, not just listen to the words of his closest friend, who has the most faith in him to begin with. While combat is probably the best, there were times where it felt like I would miss or get off ground, and the way the city stuff was handled felt a little too short and wasn't completely necessary. But at least it was all there and not spread out like in Prompto's episode. Still, this one, I will admit, was pretty good despite all else. If there was one episode I was happy with the most, it would have been with him. Definitely flawed, but otherwise, not bad. And yet, that's not the end of it. It was announced this year that even more character episodes would be made, even though the Royal Edition was meant to be the final batch of DLC. But nope, more is coming, so it's still not complete. The episodes will be as such: one for Ardyn, one for Luna, one for Aranea, and one for Noctis? Wasn't the main game essentially his episode? Why does he need one? The only one I really care for seeing is Aranea, since again, she is pretty badass and has potential, and really, party members like her should have been given episodes right away, since they could delve into some side stories we don't normally see. If the main game was about Noctis and friends and the DLC was about the side characters, that would have been okay. But nope, this was how they chose to do it at first. Will I cover those in the future? Who knows? But otherwise, that's about it as far as the main Royal Edition and Season Pass stuff is concerned. I have a few more things to say later, but for now, what comes next? Part 4 was Comrades, so what's in store for Part 3? Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, next time, we're taking a proper look at the Kingsglaive movie, aka the prologue.
SpaceMonkeyMafiaStudios.com.
What is it? Is something troubling you, Noct? You seem vexed.
Oh, I'm vexed, all right. I heard you were trying to steal my spotlight.
What? No, who told you?
Rayvis.
Oh.
If you want the title of protagonist that badly, then you're gonna have to fight me for it.
I was only trying to help. Would you rather I'd left you to die?
You're gonna wish you had. You know, people didn't pay good money for this game to watch me lose.
People voted as their best boy.
At least I didn't come in last. Damn it. What are my fans gonna say?
That you gave it your all, assuming you still have fans.